40 for Rateable Crest Titans.
Welcome to North Wales for the 2019 Cambrian Rally, the first round of the Motorsport UK British Rally Championship. And what an entry we've got lined up for you in the BRC Junior category. Last year's title winner, Steve Rokeland, might not be back to defend his title, but James Williams, runner-up in the category, is. So a thrilling prospect lined up for round one, and we've got 5 following rounds that take in the lanes of Belgium, the mountains of Scotland, the Killer Kielder ditches, and a couple of rounds in Ireland as well. The BRC Junior category for 2019 is ready to go. I've got my vantage point here in the forests in North Wales. Here's yours for all the action. So 2018 BRC Junior runner-up James Williams leads the cruise away, a Welshman ahead of a distinctly Irish-themed entry this weekend. Impossible to try and pick a winner from a quality entry like this, particularly with 10 stages lying in wait for the cruise, including 3 in the dark. There would be no easing into the championship for our junior contenders. A challenge right from the start here at the Cambrian. Straight onto the first of the day's stages then, and it would be Will Crichton and Liam Regan that take the early advantage. It hadn't been that way from the start though, actually only 5th fastest on the opening stage of the day, but putting that right in the following 2 tests. Josh McCurlin and Gare Conway make a switch to a Peugeot this season, going well to start the day and leading after the opening 2 stages before being knocked back to second by Crichton. The difference, only 1.6 seconds. A mouth-watering battle opening up already. A bit of a mistake in the opening stage would provide an early wake-up call for James Wilson and Arthur Kieran's. Only a few seconds lost, but a reminder of how easy it is to be caught out on these stages. They end the morning with 3rd place. No dramas through the morning stages for Marty Gallagher and Dean O'Sullivan. They had a good feeling inside the car, not looking at the times too much and just trying to do their own thing. Easier said than done. They end stage 3 with 4th overall, just 0.8 of a second back from Wilson. Jordan Hone and Eileen Kelly were trying hard. Not here to make up the numbers by any stretch of the imagination. They would be the only crew out this weekend in the Opel Adam. One of only a few crews as well not complaining about the slippery stages, so perhaps the car was suited to these conditions. A last-minute deal sees Rory Bell and Darren Garrett out to contest the Junior Championship this season in a brand new spec Fiesta 1-litre R2T. Darren, of course, our reigning BRC champion alongside Matt Edwards in 2018. The pair have a bit of a messy first stage, but nothing to worry about at this early stage. The pace getting better as the morning went on. 6th place at this stage in the rally. Last year's Cadet Cup champion Jordan Reynolds with Pereda Davies alongside will be another out in a new spec Fiesta. Enjoying it as well. They do have a bit of a moment in stage 3, too wide over a crest, but they get away with it without any problems to end the morning with 7th. Things had started well for Finlay Retson and Tom Hind. Sadly, a problem on the 2nd stage of the day would see them gently hit a tree. Gently, but enough to lose the bumper. It did knock the confidence a little as well. They slipped down a few places in the order into 8th. Bart Lang and Sinclair Young will be finding their feet through the opening stages, stepping up to the BRC Juniors for this season. Everything going well so far, the varied stages providing a good challenge for the pair. And if there was an award for doing the championship on a budget, then it would go to this man, Scott Sloan, with David Sloan alongside, determined to compete in the series before reaching the age limit of 26. The pair were here this weekend alone, servicing the car themselves and making the most of the opportunity. A puncture in stage 2 wasn't helping their times, but they do reach the end of the loop, rounding out our top 10 leaderboard. There'd be early frustration, though, for James Williams and Tom Woodburn. They came here with targets on their back. They leave early thanks to mechanical issues in stage 3, seeing their rally coming to a disappointingly early end. On to the second loop of the day then, And it would be big change in the results. Rally leaders Will Crichton and Liam Regan get a puncture in stage 5, meaning that they drop right back on the leaderboard into 5th. A disappointing way to end the daytime stages, over 30 seconds lost. But the pressure was at least off. It was no longer theirs to lose, and they could push to make up some of that time in the final loop of stages. But it would take one heck of a push. With that lead now changing, there was a new fight for the top spot, and it would be James Wilson and Arthur Kieran's taking that position for now. There wasn't much more they could have done in these stages, physically shaking by the end of them due to the pace that they were on. And if you thought the times were close before at the top of the leaderboard, then this loop would be even closer. The lead slipping away for Josh McCurlin and Ger Conway, but they were now only 0.1 of a second back in second place. It really isn't possible to be much closer. Jordan Hone and Eileen Kelly were still enjoying plenty of grip out on the stages, perhaps finding some lines of their own as others were certainly struggling. They reached the end of this loop with the final step on the junior podium. A puncture just after service in this loop wouldn't be helping the times for Marty Gallagher and Dean O'Sullivan. They do briefly make it up to the final step on the podium, but lose that position again in the final daylight stage. 5th place for the pair now. Rory Bell and Darren Garrett were struggling to get into a rhythm, feeling that perhaps their tyre choice was a little hard through this loop. It wasn't really costing them a lot of time, but the confidence and the speed was taking a bit of a knock. 6th place at this stage. Punctures becoming the story of the day. A puncture in the early stages of this loop wouldn't affect the times too much for Jordan Reynolds and Perida Davies, but it did mean that the pair used their only spare. The remaining stages in the loop would need a little more conservative approach and a bit more respect to make sure that they got to the end unscathed. The confidence was now returning a little for Finlay Retson and Tom Hind, and it was showing. They were still learning the car as they went along, so the pace was a bit unknown. Rain was coming down now in the middle of the stages as well, affecting the conditions, making things changeable out there, so they'd need to be a little more cautious to avoid any further damage to the car. Still another loop of 3 stages to go after this one, a long way to go. After bright sunshine to start the day, the rain was a bit of a surprise. And coming down, it was making the second pass of the morning stages a little worse. But Bart Lang and Sinclair Young were still doing exactly what they came here to do. 9th place overall for the pair, comfortably inside our top 10. There'd been no change, meanwhile, for Scott and David Sloan. They didn't seem to think that things were going quite as well as they could out on the stages, though. But they could use any rough edges at this stage to even things out and sort themselves on the next few stages, and indeed to improve for the rest of the season. Bit of a learning curve at this event for the pair. A few mechanical problems starting to show themselves on the car at this stage as well. Don't forget, these guys are competing and they are single-handed in the service area as well. And there wasn't any change on the results to report for Nabila Tejpar and Max Freeman either. The second pass of the stages providing a little better of feeling in the car. Things still going well, a solid 11th place. On to those final stages then here at the opening round of the BRC Junior Championship. We'd unfortunately lose Nabila Tejpar and Max Freeman, sporting a new aero package on the final stages with the boot lid open. But it would be a trip into a ditch that eventually ended the event for the pair. Frustration too for Scott and David Sloan, those issues in the previous loop that we mentioned becoming terminal, retiring in the end with gearbox problems. It was an excruciating disappointment for Jordan Reynolds and Perida Davies. They came here looking for a strong result. They do reach the end of the rally, but the car suffered mechanical problems on the road section back to the finish in Llandudno. Game over for the pair, so close to the end. It would have been an enjoyable weekend at the end of the day for Bart Lang and Sinclair Young. Their first gravel stages in the dark. The pair ending the day with 8th place on the leaderboard. Potentially a power issue for them to look at before the next round though. And it would be bittersweet for Rory Bell and Darren Garrett through the closing stages of the rally. breaking a drive shaft going into the final stage, meaning they had to limp the car round and then on the road section back to Llandudno. Not the end that they would have wanted after a strong showing, but they do at least make it back to the finish. It had been a strong weekend, particularly given that they were learning the car. Finlay Retson and Tom Hind take away from this round loads to build on for the next round of the series, and a few cosmetic issues to put right on the car as well. 6th place for the pair. Jordan Hone and Eileen Kelly did all that they could this weekend. They kept the pressure on. The times were good, and they proved that they could mix it at the top of our leaderboard here in the junior category. The car and crew should be more suited to the asphalt of the next round in Ireland, and they would surely be ones to watch. Punctures definitely the story of the day. A puncture in the final loop would lose Josh McErlin and Ger Conway a little more time. They reached the end of the rally with 4th place, just missing out on a podium by 1.6 seconds. After a mighty battle all day long, let's move on to those podium places, and it would be 3rd for Marty Gallagher and Dean O'Sullivan. They do have a puncture themselves in this final loop, but apart from that, things had gone to plan, and it was damage limitation. 3rd place for the pair on this opening round. Surely, though, the drive of the weekend had to belong to this man, Will Crichton, with Liam Regan alongside, coming back from that stage 5 puncture and that huge time loss to get to the end of the rally with 2nd place, salvaging a great haul of points from what could have been a very disappointing weekend, and taking strength from a difficult situation as well. Proof, if ever it was needed, that you should never give up.
And you're done. Well done, lad. Up a level. Well done.
But taking the victory this weekend would be James Wilson and Arthur Kierans. Swapping time at the top all day long, the pair get to the end of the rally with a 1.9 second lead. A close finish to this opening round of the BRC Junior Championship 2019. We'll head back to the finish in Llandudno and get some reaction from our crews over the finish ramp. A reminder, though, first of those final times here on the Cambrian. Well, driver of the day must go to Will Crichton after coming back from that puncture to get himself onto the podium and overhaul those positions on the leaderboard today. What an exciting battle. The future stars of motorsport have put on a great show for us in the BRC Junior category, haven't they? And it bodes well for a thrilling prospect across the next 5 rounds of the British Rally Championship. Next up, it's West Cork in Ireland. We'll see you there. Last time out in the BRC Juniors, we saw a distinctly Irish-flavoured podium on the Cambrian Rally in Wales. And for round 2, the crews head over the water to Ireland for the Clonakilty Park Hotel West Cork Rally. So you will be brave to bet against a similar result this weekend. Winner of round 1, James Wilson leads the junior field away, with 2nd placed Will Crichton behind. James Williams makes the switch back to the trusty Vauxhall Adam for this weekend. 15 stages lie in wait in the Irish lanes for the crews in total, and it all starts with the infamous ring stage. Here we go with action from the first of the stages then, and it would be the lead for Marty Gallagher and Dean O'Sullivan. They have a bit of a close call in the first stage of the rally, but thankfully nothing more than just a scare. For Josh McErlin and Keaton Williams, it would be second. They were suffering with steamy windows, but apart from that, they were having a good, solid start to the event. Everything was going to plan, meanwhile, for Jordan Hone and Eileen Kelly. They have a good feeling in the car, rounding out our podium places. In fact, their pace good enough to be catching cars in the stages. A spin on the opening stage of the day will be holding James Williams and Tom Woodburn back a little. They'd made it up for the next few stages, though, back out in the Adam this weekend and going well in 4th. There were problems early on though for our round one winners, James Wilson and Arthur Kieran's. They suffer a misfire on the car, and to top it off, the pair would make a big mistake in stage 3, damaging the car. They end the morning with 5th place. Will Crichton and Liam Regan were finding the morning stages tricky. Standing water in places would be waiting to catch our competitors out. They do make a mistake in the 3rd stage of the day as well, overshooting a corner and almost going up a driveway. Clearly not the only ones to have done that either. Thankfully though, with no damage other than to the times and perhaps to the confidence.
Slight left, 140.
There was a good feeling in the car though for Rory Bell and Darren Garrett. They weren't pushing too much in these tricky conditions. It was a long rally and there were still plenty of miles to go. Plenty more time for a push when the stages started to dry. A similar story as well for Finlay Retson and Richard Crozier. They were still getting used to the car. Things still going to plan as well. 8th place at this stage in the rally. The opening stages would all be about settling in for Bart Lang and Sinclair Young, but that would give way to a big push, seeing the stage times coming down a fair bit. They end the morning with 9th place on the junior leaderboard. And rounding out our top 10 leaderboard at this stage were Nabia Tejpar and Max Freeman. They were happy with how things were going so far. After the disappointment of the opening round, they'd be looking to make sure that they made the finish and got some points on the board for their campaign. Sad to report though that there was more bad luck for Jordan Reynolds and Perida Davies through the morning stages. They'd spin the car between the banks on the 4th stage of the day, taking some time to get themselves out of that position and back pointing the right way up the stage. They'd have to pull over later in the stage to check the damage and limp that car to the end.
They go on 6 right.
Let's take a look at action from the afternoon stages then, and another pair of stages each run twice, this time with a short spectator stage in Clonakilty to finish the day. There'd be drama as well. Major change at the top of our leaderboard. We lose our early leaders Marty Gallagher and Dean O'Sullivan. They crash out on stage 6. But of course, one man's misfortune is another's gain, as we see all the time in rallying, and we see Jordan Hone and Eileen Kelly stepping up now to take the lead going into day 2. That would of course mean that they'd overtaken Josh McCurlin and Keaton Williams on their stage times. This pair now sitting in 2nd place, the fight still well and truly on. Something still didn't quite feel right with the car for James Williams and Tom Woodburn. They'd have to manage with that though until the end of the day, seeing what they could find in service. A bit fruitless as well, 3rd place for now. Will Crichton and Liam Regan wouldn't be taking any risks out there in the lanes. There was still too much of the rally left to go. The stages were drying, but the mud was still being pulled out onto the corners, making things treacherous. They reached the end of the day with 4th on the leaderboard. Some rough repairs to the car would see James Wilson and Arthur Kieran's continuing to fight. Now in 5th place. It's all about the tie wraps. Happy enough with how things were going now though. Rory Bell and Darren Garrett had made a few setup changes and were seeing the benefit of it in the later stages. They were still cautious of those slippery lanes, but going well in 6th. Meanwhile, things were a bit more enjoyable for Finlay Retson and Richard Crozier now that the stages were drying out. They still had to be careful, but at least a dry line was developing so that they could pick up the pace ahead of day 2.
130, Care, 6 right, half long, tightens to 4 right over crest.
After that big push early on, Bart Lang and Sinclair Young didn't think that there was much left to give through these stages. Trying hard though, and feeling that they were doing all that they could, they end the day with 8th place on the junior BRC leaderboard. Jordan Reynolds and Perida Davies out of the fight now after their problems earlier. They keep things going though, moving their way up the leaderboard to 9th at this stage in the rally.
5 right over junction and 6 left long into 5 right.
And continuing to round out our top 10 were Nabia Tejpar and Max Freeman. Happy that their stage times were improving as well as the rally went on. It's all about the experience. On to day 2 of the West Cork Rally then. 3 stages in the loop, each run twice. And we can take a look at how this final day of the rally panned out. Early attrition on day 2 for Jordan Reynolds and Pereira Davies. The car stopping mid-stage with electrical issues, unable to continue.
Someone's dead.
What? Car's dead?
Yeah. Stop. Kill it.
Yeah.
And on to our finishers. It will be an 8th place finish this weekend for Nabila Tejpar and Max Freeman. They'd be glad to get to that finish ramp and add some points onto the board after their non-finish at the opening round in Wales. For Bart Lang and Sinclair Young, it had been a mixed event. It would be 7th at the end of the day. Nice and clean for the pair that enjoyed their weekend on the Irish lanes. There was more bad luck in store for Finlay Retson and Richard Crozier though. They get this corner all wrong, ending up with the car climbing the bank. They were beached, and it would take a few minutes to get the car back on the road and underway again. They end the rally at least with a 6th place finish in the BRC Juniors as well.
Okay, take time, don't you? Just bed yourself in. Okay.
Rory Bell and reigning BRC overall champion co-driver Darren Garrett were enjoying the better grip that day 2 was offering. The pace was good. They end this weekend 5th. That misfire from day 1 would have been sorted now for James Wilson and Arthur Kierans. The feeling in the car was good again. They were able to start putting in some faster times as we've come to expect. They end the rally 4th. There would be, though, more of a shake-up on our leaderboard as we lose overnight leaders Jordan Hone and Eileen Kelly after that heroic early battle. They stop in stage. This would, of course, mean some changes in our podium positions, and it would be a 3rd place finish for Will Crichton and Liam Regan. A great result for the pair to add to their strong finish on the opening round of the series. That change back to the old car for James Williams and Tom Woodburn turned out to be pretty inspired. They get to the end of the rally with 2nd place. A wrong tyre choice along the way meant that they went off a little, but thankfully nothing that affected those times and the overall leaderboard. So that reshuffle means it's victory for Josh McErlin and Keaton Williams. They kept the pressure on, taking their first BRC Junior win and bagging a prize fund of £2,500 from Peugeot and Total in the process. Here is confirmation then of the final results here at the end of the Clonakilty Park Hotel West Cork Rally. That victory this weekend making it a close battle after 2 rounds this season. Josh McErlin now equal at the top of the leaderboard with James Wilson on 37 points. Next up, our crews head back over the water for the fast stages of Killer Kielder on the Pirelli International Rally. That title fight is close as ever going into round 3 of the British Rally Championship.
Care 40 for Raidable Crest Titans.